A lot of people have forgotten about the gold standard. The gold standard.
Mm-hmm.
You write about this. What was the gold
Sure.
standard, and why the heck would we ever leave it?
There's a lot of answers to that question. Now, the gold standard, there's been several gold standards. The original one we're usually talking, when we talk about the gold standard, is the classical gold standard, and that's what I've written about some. And that basically was a convertibility standard where your dollar was defined in terms of some weight and fineness of gold. And conceivably, you could go to a bank and you could trade in your dollar for gold, or you could trade in gold for a dollar. And what that does is that makes it such that, first of all, the amount of currency in circulation is limited, which means it's very hard for governments to inflate and deflate. There was a very, very low level of inflation under gold currencies, but not very much. Certainly nothing compared to what we've had today. And it also means that I can sort of, I myself and citizens can sort of keep the government in line. If the government sees, if the government seems to be doing something that's going to create inflation, we're going to convert those dollars to gold, so we have that hard currency. Something that a commodity that's held its value for thousands of years. Now, that's the classical gold standard, and that was very good for many hundreds of years. There's reasons why governments went off it, mostly because they wanted to be able to create an elastic currency that they could expand and contract at will. Some people would say that they had benign reasons for that. They wanted to be able to expand the currency in the when we were a more agricultural nation. You might want more currency before the harvest or after the harvest. We had banking panics, but if you look at the historical record, inflation, the volatility of the currency, the fluctuations in economic growth, all that stuff, it's all been vastly worse since 1914, and especially since 1971, when we severed the very last link between the dollar and gold. Things have been out of control. We've had more frequent financial panics. Those financial panics have been deeper. We've had the growth of these sort of mega banks that don't seem to be killable, and they don't seem to be replaced by mergers and acquisitions. There's any number of things which have happened. We've turned from a nation of savers into a nation of spenders. Anything you could name, so many different really pernicious things have happened since we severed the last link between gold and the dollar in 1971.
Peter, finally, a lot of people are under the impression that if they want to own some gold, that they have to have a Fort Knox bank vault in their backyard with gold bars like Bob Menendez. And that's not the case at all. This is a common thing and a thing people should be doing, isn't it?
Well, I mean, there's a certain logic, and there's a certain sort of wisdom that says that people should be ready for what happens. I mean, I'm not a financial advisor, but certainly having a little bit of gold, a little bit of silver is still part of many cultures outside the United States. And many people view that as something they could do so that if everything were to go to hell in a handbasket, they would have something of hard value that could be exchanged for money or that can be used in trade and something like that. You don't, I don't think, need to do anything special, but certainly like anything valuable, you'd want to keep it secured. And again, I think that, for a lot of this wisdom, we have to look not even back to our parents and grandparents, but our great-grandparents. And many of us who have families that came from overseas, we know that they brought gold and silver with them. So, a lot of the things that we've been told are no longer necessary, are necessary. We've just been sort of blinded to it by this idea that paper money, is an improvement and that it's a sign of economic maturity or whatever. None of that is true. We are still as vulnerable to inflation and to the failures of government as we ever have been. Probably even more so now that government plays a major role in our lives.
Yeah. Peter, thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.